Okay, so I hope you're all well and in good health, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something new. I'm going to talk about some things I'm interested in. Now, firstly, books have been of great assistance in my spiritual journey, and I think they're also very good tools for those of us who like to practice alone, who like to practice by themselves, right? Also in groups are good, but for the solo practitioner, a book could also be like a teacher, right? And on top of that, if the book is able to give practical advice, it can sometimes lead us to take those first initial steps along a path. And then obviously teachers and other people who are more experienced in the field we're interested in will gradually come our way, or we become, more aware of their presence, for example, and we go and learn from them. But all in all, the teacher is within us, right? And sometimes people on the outside reflect this, and that's why we're resonating, right? Because we might have this link, this karmic link from another past or something, right? But being this is only an introduction to these kind of videos, I just wanted to introduce the book. Now, the book is called Wonders of the Natural Mind by Tenzin Rinpoche, and it talks about the essence of Dzogchen in the native Bon tradition of Tibet. Now, the Bon tradition is the indigenous traditions of Tibet. Now, in Tibet, you might have heard of Tibetan Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism is basically a mixture of Bon and Buddhism. And it's kind of merged together, so you have this Buddhist shamanic tradition, which also has like a yogic practice to it, and it's super interesting stuff. And what really has drawn me to Tibetan Buddhism is the practicality of it, right? Like, there's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of secrecy, and there's also an emphasis on the teacher-student relationship, because you have a sense of the guru yoga. So where you have a guru, where you have a teacher, and you learn from them, and they transmit oral teachings to you, right, through the lineage. So they need to kind of like know if you are ready as a student, etc., etc. But this has kind of died out in more recent years, right? Because the Tibetans were driven out of their land and stuff. Like, so many of the cultures like Native American culture, like African culture, like, Taino and Caribbean cultures, and all of these things, like, it's just a mess, right? People want to oppress all the time. But this tradition lives on. But what I wanted to basically say is that now we're like living in a time where there's a lot of teachings, especially on YouTube, even on Instagram. Like, everyone is a master of this or a master of that, and has information, has this knowledge, right? But what I found is it's easy to accumulate knowledge. It's easy to just amass a huge amount of knowledge and then not do anything about it, or do nothing with it, right? And that's why you need practice. And that's actually one of the reasons why Buddhism really resonated with me earlier on, before I took refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the triple gem, right? And this was at Shaolin Temple in Germany, Shaolin Europe under the abbot, and also Shi Hengyi, who's also really, he's like smashing YouTube right now. But anyway, the practicality of Buddhism, there's practice to do. It's not just theory, there's practice. And that's what I really like. And then one thing kind of led to the other, and I'm also interested in Taoism and the martial arts, Shaolin martial arts, all of these things. And what I'm finding is that they're all connected, right? It's like they were once a pizza, but then over time, like someone came along and just cut the pizza and just moved the pizza pieces like everywhere, right? So now it's our job to go here and go there, and there's no one tradition and there's no one place that has the answer. You have to go to like ABC, like many different places, to collect information and then bring it back to center and then do the work, right? And sometimes this just happens within. We might not need to, look at various traditions and stuff like this. But I found through my own experience that when you do that, you're gaining new perspectives on the things that you know. And these things are being tested. Now, no one wants to be tested and told that they're wrong, right? But how else are you going to learn? That's how we learn to do things, by making mistakes. And anyway, I apologize. I always have a tendency sometimes to go off on tangents, so get used to it. And I'm going to lead myself back. And another reason why Tibetan Buddhism, or Vajrayana Buddhism, really interests me is because there's a lot of art, there's a lot of sculpture, there's a lot of symbolism, which really resonates with me as an artist. Now, some traditions, like even in Buddhism, they just cut that out a lot, right? They just go straight to the juicy bit. They go straight to business. They don't mess around with ritual and all of these things. For example, in Theravada, I find like there's a huge emphasis on the moral code of conduct. You're changing your behavior, right? And there's a lot of rules and things like this which are very important. And if you follow this path, you cut straight to the chase, right? But what I found is everyone has a different temperament. It's like a video game, different characters. Some have more magic, some people have more defense, or some people have more attack. So you have to find like what way suits you, and then go down that path, see if that works. But if there comes a time where it's not really working, like after having investigated, which is a thing the Buddha said, right? He said, like, don't basically believe what I'm telling you. Go out and see for yourself, like try it out. And I was like, yo, that's what's up. Like, let me go and try this, okay? So in Buddhism, you have like concentration, meditations and practices, and then you have vipassana, insight meditation, where you're looking at the nature of things, you're looking at, the stress that is behind existence, right? And all the things that we do to avoid it. It looks at the impermanence of things, how things are not lasting, like they're made of energy. Things are in transition all the time, being born and dying and being born again and all these things, right? And then we see how we also like attach these things, and we're naming these things, and we're like analyzing these things, and then we're becoming like several parts, and now there's no wholeness anymore. which reminds me actually of my vision journey and how I'm learning to see again, right? Without my glasses, which is another video for another day. But what I'm finding is that I need to use my peripheral vision because I've been too tunnel vision, right? So now I'm using my peripheral vision. So if we implement that, we could say I'm using all of the things that I've learned over time and putting it together and then going forward from that point, right? And this point is a point of stillness. Action comes from stillness. We need to still ourselves before we can take action. And so I want to start this book in the next video. And I want to talk a little bit about the author because I'm reading through his story and it's really interesting, really magical, and kind of a lesson in itself, which he highlights. We learn a lot through learning about, the lives of masters and people who have achieved very high levels of consciousness, in their quest for spiritual growth. So we read their autobiographies and then we learn a lot through that. It's not just like, here's a textbook, A, B, C, you do this. Alright, so I'm going to leave at that. Much love, many blessings, and see you in the next video.